Hey everyone, welcome back. In this new video of C++ programming, we will be learning about int and float in C++. So what are these two keywords called as int and float? These two keywords, int and float, is associated with numbers and how we are going to define and use those numbers in C++, that's what we will see today. So our C++ program starts with main, that is void main. If you are writing void main, we do not have to write anything here. But if you are writing it as int main, we have to, in the last line of this block, I have to write return 0. But if I'm writing it as int main, void main, I do not need this return 0. Okay, so how we are going to define numbers in C++? Now to add, subtract, divide any number, we need two numbers. Okay, so we will write 60 comma 50, two numbers, but we cannot write in C++ as 60 comma 50 because before using these numbers we have to store these numbers in the memory space. Okay, so like how we are going to store it, there is this memory blocks in the storage. So I will define three memory blocks, 1, 2 and 3, and I will name this memory block as A. And then I want another memory block. The second memory block I have named it as C, and this memory block as B, and second one is B, and this memory block I have named it as C. Now we have three memory storages A, B and C. Now before using these numbers 60 and 50 in C++, I have to store these numbers somewhere. So I will store this 60 in this memory block, and I will store the number 50 in the second memory block. Okay, now 60 is stored in the memory block called as A. So I have to write here A equal to 60. That is, I'm defining a space called as A where I'm storing this value 50. And then I am defining another storage here called as B, and I'm storing the value 50 here. Now why I'm doing this? Because I may have to use these 60 and 50, these numbers again and again. So when I'm storing it, I can easily access the values of A and B. Now I have stored these values 60 and 15 A and B now, but I also have to say to the compiler whether these two values are decimal values or they are integers. Now 60 and 50 is integer, so before this statement I will write int. I'm telling the compiler that I have two values named as A and B, and those two values are integers. Okay, and I will end this statement with a semicolon. Now why I have to tell the compiler that these two are integers? So that it will store only that much amount of space. It will give only that much amount of space, to 4 bytes of space to this values. If I say it as decimal value, it will increase the memory storage space. So now I have defined two values A and B, and I have stored it in the memory space, and I also defined it as integer. Okay, so that the compiler will know how much space it should allocate to both these values. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the value of A and B. Now how I'm going to print these two numbers? Again I have to use the word cout, and I will give two left arrows. And now I do not usually I used to write double quotes. In double quotes I used to write A, but here I don't have to print A, I have to print the value that is stored in A. So I do not have to need to use the double quotes, I have to only write A. It means the compiler will not print A, the compiler will find out the value of A, that is here it is stored, and it will print A. Then I will give semicolon, then again I will write to print the value of B, I will write cout, two left arrows and B. Again I will not write it in double quotes. If I write it in double quotes, it will print as B, but I will write it only as B. so that it will not print B, but it will print the value of B that is stored in the memory space. Now I will execute this program and I will check in an online C++ compiler. Now I will execute this and check in a C++ online compiler, which is called as programis. Like I said, if I'm writing int main, then I have to write return 0. If I'm writing a void main, then I do not need return 0. Okay, so the first is I need two numbers 60, 45, but I cannot write it as 60, 45 because I have to store these values. So I will define a memory space A equal to 60 and B equal to 45. And now this A and B, these two are called variables because these values can change. Now A, I can write it as 100 also. B also I can write it as 40. I can write any values. This values changes. That's why these names A and B are called as variables. I can write this, I can use any name. I can also write it as num1 and num2. Okay, and then I also have to define whether these two numbers are integers or decimal values. Here these two are integers, so I'm writing int. Then I will print. To print it, I will write cout, two left arrows, and in double quotes, see I'm writing in double quotes num1 semicolon, and then again I will write cout in left arrows, in double quotes I will write num2. Let me see what is being printed. I will give a semicolon. All these four lines are inside this main block, inside the curly braces. That's why these four lines will end with a semicolon. I will run and check what output I am getting. See, I have got the output num1 and num2. Now I have to write /n or /t to give a space, but I do not want to print num1 and num2. I want the value of num1 and num2 to be printed. So for that I will remove the double quotes. Without the double quotes, I am going to write num1 and num2 because anything that you write inside the double quotes will be printed as it is. Now when I'm writing num1 num2, the value of num1 num2 will be taken from the memory storage and it will be printed. So I'm checking with the output. See, 100 output is 140, but I need these two values to print in separate lines. So I will write again, I will write two left arrows and I will write /n in double quotes. In slash and double quotes means it will leave a line. Okay, and then it will see, I will run again. I want these two in two separate lines and I have written /n for it. Now I cannot write num after num1 also. Can I write /n? I will check. Here in double quotes I will write /n. Just have to experiment and check whether these things are working or not. If I'm getting an error, I will change it. See, I'm getting an error. So what I will do is I will give here two left arrows again and then I will write /n. See the code successful. I am getting the values in two separate lines. Now what I want to print is num1 equal to 100, num2 equal to 40. I want to print likewise. So I want to print first num1. So I'll write the num1 in double quotes. I want to print num1 is equal to, as it is, I want to print this statement. And then after that I want num1's value, then I'm writing num1 again. So these I've written in double quotes. This will be printed as it is, and here I have not used double quotes. So this num1's value will be interpreted and then it will leave a line. This is the, again, for each and every new thing I have to print in a same line, I have to give these two left arrows. Again and again I have to write these left arrows. Again here I will write, first I have to print num2 as it is. That's why I will write it in double quotes. Num2 is equal, this will be printed as it is. Then after the double quotes I will write two left arrows. I will write num2 without the double quotes so that num2's value will be printed. Now I will run. In the output, see, num1 equal, this is printed as it is, whatever I have written here in the double quotes, and then again num1's value is printed here, and then I have num2 equal to num2's value. So we have seen how to define two integer numbers, how to print two integers numbers. Now what I will do is, now if these numbers are not integers but it is decimal values, for decimal values I have to write float, 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 and I'm going to give decimal 10.78. Here also I will give 0.60, and the rest will be same. Rest we have to print the same, only you have to define the decimal values as float. See, it is exactly, it is giving me the values. Imagine if I'm using decimal values but I'm not writing float, if I'm writing here int, then what will happen? See, I will run. See, what has happened is the decimal values are not printed, only the value before the decimal point is only printed. So that's why for decimal values I have to use float. Okay, we have learned integer and float in this video now. So that's it from this video. Today we saw how we have to define two integer values, how we can define two float, that is decimal point values, and how we can print those. Okay, so if you have to print the value of a, we should not use here double quotes, we have to only directly write a. But if you have to print a, then we have to use double quotes. Here to print the value of b also we should only use b, we should not use double quotes. Okay, so we saw how the difference between using double quotes after c out and without using double quotes, how we can restore or access these values which we have stored in the memory space, and how we can print it. So that's it from this video. The next video we will see how to add, subtract, multiply, divide and print those values using cout, and then how to take these numbers, accept these numbers from the user. We will all see all these things in the next videos. So thank you so much for watching this video.